sometimes it's also hard because, clients also have their own responsibilities, and you can tell them and you can explain the safety and how it works, and still the moment they do their own bicycling, they think, especially the Dutch clients, they just want to do it their own way, and they sometimes just don't listen, and then accidents happen.
Welcome back to the Boat Bike Tours podcast. I'm Ennie, your host for this episode. I usually work in marketing and sales at our Amsterdam office, and today I'm speaking with two guests, both very interesting. Marieke, who works with me at our office in Amsterdam, and then we have Jens, who is a tour guide. I think it's best if you guys introduce yourselves, so why don't we start with Marieke?
Okay. I work at the office since February this year. I started as a tour leader coordinator. So my job is to look after all the tour leaders. We have around 130 tour leaders at the moment, and I'm busy during the season. I'm busy just helping out with contracts, training. If they need anything, I'm at the office, and out of the season, I'm busy with getting new tour leaders, also training, and also the contracts and everything that actually has to do with tour leaders. It's my task. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm Jens, and long story short, roughly 10 years ago, I started off as a deckhand on one of the vessels. Also, I'm still tour guiding these days, so I was familiar with the product of boat and bike tours roughly 10 years ago, doing the nautical things on board, and then roughly 6 years ago, from colleagues I still hang out with once in a while, they told me, hey, Jens, why not just do our job and start cycling? Maybe you can use some extra exercise. Say, hey, why not? So that's my start of my career as a tour guide. So yeah, still love it, and hopefully I can do it another 10 years.
How
maybe.
many seasons did you do now?
Roughly 6 seasons, yeah.
That's a lot already.
It is, in a way, but it feels like if it's still a fun job, it doesn't feel like a long time, but still enjoy it a lot. Yeah.
But that's good.
Thanks. Yeah.
Today we're having an interesting topic to discuss, safety on board or safety in general. Can one of you please explain what safety means in that context?
You want to start? Yeah.
Should I start?
Yeah.
Well, safety for us as tour guides, it's safety. So right now I'm talking about cycling with a group, and of course everybody has in a way their own responsibility, but it's good to reach out some tips and sometimes some life hacks to guests how to be even safer in cycling in a group. I think 90% of our guests, they are professionals or at least recreational and in good shape. And sometimes there are some people who maybe also could have booked another trip, but we love to have them in the group. Of course, people, they are joining a group trip, and it's not that we only need people who are, let's say, retired Tour de France cyclists. We can deal with all guests, but the challenge is sometimes to give guests who are maybe not the most talented cyclists to reach out to them and give them a few tips how to be more stable on a bicycle, for example.
Yeah, we noticed that the difference between, especially when they come from America, from Canadian, they can drive a bicycle, but we noticed that their problem is that the traffic and the people in the cars, they normally don't drive a bicycle. So they feel very unsafe around cars and traffic. And in Holland, it's totally different because everyone that's in a car also knows how to ride a bike. Mm-hmm. So, but they're still very insecure about it. And normally you have to really tell them, no, it's okay, you can drive here, the traffic will be careful. And so it's a different approach than for us because we were like almost born on a bicycle. And that's a big cultural difference. So, it needs a lot of attention the moment they arrive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if we're talking about this safety, specifically when it's about cycling, you also have the safety briefings on board, right? So how do you kind of prevent possible incidents or accidents that could happen?
Well, we have our, let's say, scripted briefing with a few things about rules and regulations on the road, a few things about science they come across, and we have something in Netherlands and also Belgium and other countries as well. We call it shark teeth. It's like a yield sign painted on the road, and that's also not known for everybody. So those things, that's one thing. And beside that, we also tell them a few basic things about how to use the gear. And that's sometimes hard because you do not know how experienced people are. So for somebody who is cycling, every day 20, 30 miles, it's maybe a little tiring to hear how to shift a bike, but we try to find a balance.
That's the problem, because normally when they book the trip, they get asked if they've got experience with bikes. And you have people that say, yes, I have experience. And then they arrive and then it's like, I have a home trainer. And I do that lots of times, but it's not the same as on a bike cycling through Holland.
Of course not. First of all, the traffic, but also the balance issue. You don't really learn how to balance your weight on a home trainer.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's that's something, and it's also hard to. Well, there are a few small things. If some guests they are very, they have the tendency to look around the bicycle in the vicinity of let's say 2 meters, but your body needs input from the horizon, so you have to look away as well and look back. And now and then there are some guests that they also need little tips like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Marieke, you do also the training for new tour guides. Yeah. Do you also brief them on that issue?
Absolutely. Yeah, we do a whole training period of 3 days, and we go on a ship. And then we go with 5, 6 tour leaders that come with, and we've got bike mechanic briefings. We do the ride with GPS. We're going to start bicycling with them as well. And we also talk about all the things that could have happened on a trip. And so we really put a lot of effort in the training before they start their own trip by themselves. And we also make sure that the first time they're going to do their own tour, that there's an experienced other tour leader with them to help them with the first.
Yeah, I missed
days.
out. I missed out on that training 6 years ago.
Yeah.
We didn't have it yet.
I wasn't there yet.
But I was lucky. I was partly trained by a guy. Yeah, his name is Adi, and maybe some of the audience who are listening into this video podcast they know him. But he's one of the first tour guides. He also teaches me, for example, sometimes in a group you're cycling up front, you should just tell the person behind you, okay, I'm gonna draw back, so then I'm falling back to the end of the group, and while cycling you can just observe if there are some guests who are maybe unstable on a bicycle and stuff like that.
Yeah, we have a system that there's normally at the back is one of the guests, and we call them a sweep, and they make sure that everything on the back is going okay. And then we also have the corner system, I think.
That depends a little bit. There are some
some use it, some don't.
Well, some are very in favor of the corner system, and it works out in a good way. It's been talked about in the previous episodes of this podcast, but the corner system is a big help out if you're in congested city areas and tight turns. But in the countryside, I don't use it that often. But then I think it's also not needed that much.
Yeah, but sometimes it's also hard because, clients also have their own responsibilities, and you can tell them and you can explain the safety and how it works. And still, the moment they do their own bicycling, they think, especially the Dutch clients, they just want to do it their own way, and they sometimes just don't listen, and then accidents happen. So you do your best, but you can't always prevent things happening. So also because Holland is getting so busy with e-bikes, fat bikes, race, bikes, whatever. It's
Yeah,
it's a big
it's getting
difference than 10 years ago.
getting busier each day, but that mostly applies to the vicinity of the big cities and
Yeah.
the countryside. And again, if we do have a lot of separate bicycle lanes, and then you're totally don't have any stress with other traffic. But it's good to know that in some occasions there will be
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
other traffic around.
And Jens, did you have in all of your years working for World Bike Tours, did you have a lot of accidents happening?
Well, not a lot, but yeah, a few. I had to call. We used 112, but the 911 number a few times. But that all was well in a pleasant way. That worked out. Not that I was considering to give up my job because I had too many accidents and couldn't handle all the blood. Now it's most of the times it's like little owies, so people fall over and they just have a few bruises and let's go on. So
Yeah, we were
nothing like
sitting
that.
in the car, and he was saying, "It's going to be a problem if the ambulance arrives." And it says,
Yeah.
"Oh no, not another boat bike tour,
There will be
bicycle.
a red
It's
flag.
not like that yet."
A red flag, and
Thank God.
they don't answer our phones anymore.
Exactly.
Then we would have a problem. No,
Yeah.
it's not like that. Now, I had a funny thing, but that was in the period I was still working as a nautical crew member. But then talking about safety, but there was a family, and they already were sending a week in advance these training wheels the kids use. But these training wheels were.
This is a true story.
It's really happened. Were for a family, and they took along their grandmother, and they assumed the grandmother she didn't cycle for a long time. So on a grown-up bike, we mounted these.
With
these
separate
cycle-
wheels.
What?
But eventually, well, that's technical story, but it didn't work out. But we took them off, and she was cycling fine. So it's. Sometimes people try to address some problems you want to prevent, but training wheels for growing up people that isn't necessary at all.
I never heard of that.
Yeah. No, it was also the first and last
Crazy
time
story. Yeah.
I experienced that, but it happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
But she had a great holiday anyway. Yeah.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And assuming a big accident would happen while cycling, and what would you do in that case? So, Marieke, all the tour guides get CPR training once a
Yes.
year.
Yeah.
How do you handle that, first of all?
Well, they handle that themselves. We provide it always on the Meanskip. We have a first aid course they can attend, and when they do that, it's for 2 years, or they do it themselves and they send us the papers. So it's mandatory.
Good.
Yeah.
And then Jens, what would you do in that case?
Well,
There's a lot of blood.
Not always.
Luckily, I haven't had that. We had, for example, one time somebody really fell a little bit, unluckily on the knee, and then the skin on top of your kneecap, it's called, I guess, it opens, but there's no blood. It's like it was really open, but then you just call in, and that's one thing. Otherwise, if I would have something like that with friends, we might say, "Hey, let's call in a taxi." But most of the times we call in the ambulance, and but they are very easygoing. If it's a small thing, they say, "Okay, let's wait," and we call in a taxi, and you can go to the hospital. Or if it really is something, of course, they will take that person with them to check it in the hospital. I had it a few cases, but first of all, okay, you take care of the safety of the group, that not everybody else will get hurt and things like that. And then it's more like managing the accident. And many occasions, the guests, let's say the husband or wife, is getting along in the ambulance with a hospital, and then our challenge is then to take care of the bicycles, but that's minor thing, but overall,
normally the office does that.
Office does that as well sometimes, but it works out. And now I'm talking about I've had some issues small issues again in Denmark, Sweden, and also, but as well, Netherlands and Belgium. The whole infrastructure is, well, I think, well organized. So within 10 minutes, somebody is there to, if it really is necessary, to help out. Yeah,
Yeah.
with medical issues.
Lots of times we get in the office, because I also work at operations, we get from a tour leader on his phone the location where the bicycle's still standing. And sometimes you don't want to look at the bicycles because they're like,
Oh no.
yeah. And then we'll pick them up and make sure that they get back to the ship. And if needed, they get new bikes if they're still able to bicycle. So yeah, it happens. Yeah.
Yeah. And some guests are concerned beforehand, especially if they haven't been to Europe a lot and they're overseas guests. So they're asking a lot of times what would happen if I would get sick on the boat, if I'd had to go to the hospital, but we're out in the middle of nowhere. What if I fall off my bike? So do you, I know you didn't have that probably, but what would you do in that case? Like if they go to the hospital, how would the rest work out?
Well, I prefer always but now I'm talking about the fully guided tours on a little, larger. We have ships, and then you're sometimes by yourself as a tour guide. But of course, if you would, the two of you, then one is always going along with the guest to the hospital, and it also sometimes happens in the evening when. Guests can have, of course, some medical things, beside cycling, and then also we prefer to join them unless, well, they lived in, let's say, Europe or in the Netherlands. Some people have been previous expats and they know their way around as well as we do. But now
Yeah, and we also have an emergency line. So most of the times, also the tour leader, if something happens like this, they call us. Just, if we can help out with something, or we had one tour leader who had to do a CER for the first time on the street by herself, and of course she did perfectly. But after a couple of days, it hits in. It's like, whoa, I just saved a person on the street. So we also try to stay in contact with them, just to let them know that we're, thinking about them, and if everything's okay, and if there's something we can do for them. And we're also trying to help out from the other side, from the office side.
Yeah, I
things
also
like
wanted to
that.
ask you about that. Like, how do you ensure safety for tour guides? How do you make sure that they're all well doing and
Yeah, keeping a line, not just in the beginning of the season, but through the whole season. I'm always trying to, especially the new tour leaders, because it's their first season, how they're doing, if they're okay, if there's anything they need from us or we can help them with. And I'm also try to, like, the first month that they're starting, being more on the ships as well, instead of just phoning, just really being there. And that's actually really, really helpful. And they like that as well, if there's really someone from the office on the ships. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's important.
Oh,
Also,
absolutely.
the connection between tour guides and the office is really important, especially if things don't go as planned.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of times we had the case in the past that tours didn't out the work they were supposed to because of water levels, whatever. So how does that specifically work? Did you ever have something like
Oh
that?
yeah, we had several detours, and then also sometimes you have a small detour with the bicycle, but also detours with the ships. And for example, between Amsterdam, Bruges, vice versa, there is between Antwerp and Ghent, to be specific. There's the Schelde River, and that's a very nice meandering river. But sometimes, if there's something happening, like let's say one ship is stuck there, then you cannot go around it. So then we are detoured to the Westschelde. But then, it's like suddenly in the evening you just have to change and come up with a new route. But that's a little bit, you have to be a little bit creative sometimes as well.
Yeah, we had one of the sluizen, what's it in English
Locks.
again? Locks. And it was broke, and it was pretty bad, and we had to like put people in hotels and put them also, I think, on another ship. So that was a bit of a operation, and then we didn't have enough bikes, and it's a challenge. But yeah,
But at the
you
same
know,
time, it's like a little bit an adventure.
yeah,
That's the thing with a boat. It's and again, they don't break up often. Luckily, not. But it can
it
be
also happens sometimes. Yeah,
some, yeah. But it's nice. Well, it's nice, but it's also, and guests are most of the time they're very easygoing with it, and they also are aware. Yeah, if you go from hotel to hotel, this is different, but this has also some, well, excitement in a good way. Yeah.
Especially if then there is a nice alternative for the guests, and also things like that, they bond. So
Yeah.
some people say, I want to go on a ship again with the alternative route because it was just so much
yeah,
fun
exactly.
doing it differently,
Yeah.
and like the feeling of excitement figuring out or following the process when the tour guides or the office thinks of alternatives. That's fun also.
Absolutely.
No, it's always a good vibe on board, and even though there is some, well, on paper you say, hey, this is annoying, but at the end, people are, well, maybe smiling even more than if they would have the regular program like that. That's true.
And another question for you: how do you ensure safety in general for the guides and the crew members? Or how do you ensure that everything is going safe on the boat, not in regard to cycling, but how does that work?
Well, that's quite different because the safety on the ship is actually the responsibility of the ship owner and the crew itself normally. So I always advise to the tour leaders to follow them in all safety procedures. And personally, on a personal ground, I always tell them take enough rest, look after yourself. If you feel sick of something, don't wait too long. Let them know, let us know, so we can try to find maybe replacement if necessary. So yeah, I think mostly on the ships, the ship itself is
Yeah,
responsible for the safety on board.
like the captain is always, yeah, head or of the ship and also responsible for safety of the guests on board. There's of course there's the gangway, so let's say the bridge between the main shore and the vessel, the ship. That's always something. And yeah, from my background as a sailor, I also remember that it looks easy, just walking to the ship, but to have that secured on paper, that's a responsibility of the nautical crew. But we as tour guides also are cautious that guests sometimes they are so, well, eager to go back on board, for example, and maybe have their first drink after a long ride. But then they are sometimes a little bit in a hurry to go on board. But that's something that's always taken care of by the crew of the boat. Yeah.
And what precautions are being taken that no stranger can come on the boat or steal something?
Yeah, that's a good
That's a
one.
good one.
Yeah, no, it's well, first of all, there's always a crew member on board, and we do have sometimes a little talk about the gangway, the entrance to the boat. That there is a small
Gate.
yeah, ribbon like
Gate,
in
yeah.
front of it, so guests only, because it's a private charter, private boat in that way. So we had never really issues. It's always again or again, but especially in big cities like the center of Antwerp or the center of Amsterdam, then you have to be a little bit more on top of it. But
Yeah, we had Peter, one of his last trips on the Magnifique, and they were, I think, docking at Tolhuis, which is
yeah,
very close to the central station. You've got the ferry there going up and down, and I think he just left his laptop and his telephone in the captain room. I don't know how you
oh
call
yeah,
it, machine room. Within 2 minutes, someone came in, took it out, and everything was on it, our credit card, everything. So it does happen. But yeah, that's like during the day, and the guests are coming in and out and in and out. So it's very hard to notice everything. on a ship. So it does happen, but not
Not often.
not often. Yeah, so that's a good thing. And bikes get stolen. Yeah, yeah.
And we talked before about if there is an incident happening and the guests have to leave the bike behind, the office picks the bikes up. How is everything, like, in short, are the guests responsible then if the bike breaks?
Depends on if it's their own bike. Sometimes they bring their own bike and then they're responsible for it. So they have to do it through their own insurance. If it's our bike, it's our responsibility. Yeah.
Yeah, I think most of the guests are insured, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's our problem there, but also, office sometimes take care of it. And as tour guides, if you're in Belgium and you call up the office in Amsterdam, then it's also logistically wise. So then we arrange something ourselves. So we go in the field with a taxi and pick up the bikes.
And sometimes the shipper says, okay, I can go a little bit more that way, and then we can pick the bikes up. So it's like a team effort mostly, which is very nice. Yeah.
I think Captain Michael, he was earlier, like in your podcast, and he is having his own scooter, but on dock on a big vessel, and sometimes he's picking up then the bikes with his scooter. So it works out.
And how does the communication work between the two of you? If you say, I need a replacement bike or something, how does it work?
Well, most of the times there are still spare bikes on board, and or we can fix it ourselves sometimes. And there are also nautical crew members who are very technical, tech savvy on that field. And the other thing is, sometimes if it's really a need for, then the office in Amsterdam can also drop off some bikes. But there are spare bikes on board all the time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite story of all of your years on board?
Ooh, favorite story for like a Jewish channel story, like a good little. No, well, favorite story. I was just referring to that. This side wheels, the training wheels. We as a nautical crew member, we also had some funny things that people were still in the jacuzzi, and then, for example, the door was already closed, but then we forgot about it. They were still in the jacuzzi, but that was all. So the people were then in a bathing suit outside, and things like that did happen in the past. But maybe Marieke, you.
I heard a story about two clients that I think they were on one of the sailing ships and they want to be naked on the ships. And they were like, I'm coming to Holland, so it's normal that everyone walks naked here on the ships.
Yes, I also heard
You've
about
heard that
story.
And I think that was just hysterical. So,
I wouldn't even know how to react.
No. I think eventually they put some clothes on, but it took some, it wasn't easy. Yeah.
We also had some people calling a while back, Americans, and they were like, so if we book this boat and bike tour, we want to bring our children, but we don't want to go to places where people are topless. And I was like, this is usually not happening on our tours. Like, we don't go to like naked beaches or anything. And they're like, no, in the city. I'm like, there are no naked people in the city running around.
No, it's like we're all topless on the terrace here, but it's not the way it is. No.
That's true.
It's just our reputation. I don't know.
Yeah, some people are on the internet in a rabbit hole that if you look one video, something with red light districts of Amsterdam, maybe you pop up all those videos are in front of you. Then
well, good to say our tours don't pass the red light district.
No, they don't.
No.
I don't think it's even possible. With our ships.
There's in Antwerp.
That's true.
Passing it a little bit, but most of the time we avoid it. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and Marieke, before you started working for Boat Bike Tours, you've also got some different experience in the travel industry.
Yeah, I started when I was young in Africa as a tour leader. I did South Africa first, and that was a hotel trip. And then I did camping through Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Zambia, a lot of African countries. Malawi, Zanzibar. I think I did that for 6 years. Best time of my life.
That
I
sounds
cannot
really
say
good.
that to my children, but it was amazing. Really, yeah, it's beautiful. So, and after that, I that was for a travel company doesn't exist anymore. It was called Baobab Travel, but it's taken over by Sawadee. And after that, I went to work in the office to sell the same trips, which I really liked. So, and I think I did that for a long time until COVID happened, and I lost my job. And then I had to like re-event myself. Then I went into the broker, what's it, broker, makelaardij?
Real estate.
Real estate,
estate.
and I did that for like I was a real estate assistant for 5 years, but I missed it so much. The whole, travel industry, it's in my blood. So I was always looking at jobs like to do something else. And then I came to about bike tours. So
And
yeah.
how does your previous experience as a tour leader helps you now with managing basically tour leaders?
I think basically being on the other side, because I never had someone who helped me or who was there that, if something happened that I could call, or I always have to do everything by myself. Is that basically it's nice to know what you need as a tour leader, and how you can help someone or be there for someone, or yeah, I think that's helpful information if you're a tour leader yourself. So yeah, and I always wanted to be, on the other side, because all that experience, it's so nice to now use that. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's perfect. It's a perfect job for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
And now you can give to tour leaders like Jens exactly what you missed before.
Yeah, but it's the funny thing is tour leaders. It's like a language we speak. It's like if it's all like we're kind of the same people, because we know how it is to travel a lot, and it's almost like you recognize each other because you're both a tour leader. So yeah, that's very nice. I really like that. It's like one big family.
Aw.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be flexible. That's one thing, and yeah, for me, I talk for myself, but it's really the joy that every week there's a new guest, so new vibe sometimes, and it's only a week. So if it's sometimes I never had a bad week, and that the whole group was, but it's sometimes hey, this week was nice and the other week, but
Always
that's the
different.
beauty of it. That
Yeah. Every
well,
tour it's different.
Yeah.
Every experience, all the people, and sometimes it just aligns and everything. It's like they become
family.
a family, and they have reunions for years after that. It's so funny. Sometimes they even decide to travel the next year together, and then they're gonna book the same tour together. But it's nice to be like a part of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really true.
Yeah.
Well, we're coming closer to an end. At the end of each episode, I'd like to ask a question that the guests send to the office often. But I think we answered all the questions about safety here. So I have a different question.
Okay.
A lot of guests are asking, do I have to bring my own shampoo, conditioner, towels? And yeah, do they?
No, it's all there. Sometimes, well, towels for sure. The vessels where I'm guiding, well, let's say half of my trips roughly, they're my fix. They provide it for the guests, but there are certain levels, and I also think the smaller vessels
Yeah.
they
They
provide
also
it as
provide
well.
it. Yeah.
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 How
A
about hair
shampoo.
dryers?
There are sometimes on every cabin has one, and otherwise there's one that can be borrowed by. Well,
It's a good question though, because
yeah.
I don't know if every ship has a hairdryer. I'm going to find that out.
Every ship does. Except
Yeah.
for some ships really have one hair dryer to
Oh,
borrow.
Yeah.
okay. So
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to answer that question a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
It's just nicer to hear it from someone who is
Is
on the
there
boats
all
actually.
the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Well, a lot of boats, I just mentioned that they have it in every cabin. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, you both, for joining. It was really, really interesting. And I hope our listeners and viewers also learned something in this episode. If you want to see our other episodes or listen to it, you can do that on our website, boatbiketours.com, or Spotify or YouTube. And we hope to see you next time again.